Well, welcome to the November 16th, 2023 Design Review Board meeting. This is a call to order, and we'll start with the roll call.
Yes, good evening, Chair and board members. Board Member Rosner.
Here.
Board Member Malat. Board Member Chong.
Here.
And Board Member Diorcio. Here. And Chair Kim,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. At this time, it's time for oral communications for anything that is not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak about a topic that's not on the agenda, you have 3 minutes. And the mic's open now. We'll start with the in-person and then we'll go to the video. I see nobody here in person, and we'll go to the video.
If there's anyone online who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight, please raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. I am seeing none.
Okay. Next we'll go to staff briefing.
So last night at council, just so you know, we did have the first reading of the ordinance for the objective design standards for hillsides, as well as the rezoning for R3-10. The council voted in favor of that, supported the document and the recommendation from Planning Commission 4-1 last night. That's one of our good points. So we're going to move on to the second reading and then start implementing some of the programs in the housing element.
When is the second reading? Is it this year?
Yes, the second reading will be on December 6th.
Okay.
At a regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next we'll go to the minutes. Since I wasn't there, if anybody has any comments to the minutes from September 21st. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes? Can we just go to a voice vote?
You can do that with a voice
Okay,
vote.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Next, we will go to the public hearings. If we can get a, since this is an appeal, could you lay out the ground rules for an appeal and how many minutes, and how that exactly works?
Okay, so how the appeal hearing will go is that the appellant has up to 10 minutes to make their presentation and respond to any questions you may have. And then the applicant also has 10 minutes after that to make their presentation and answer any questions. After that, let's see, it says the time may be increased if necessary, but it has to be equal if you do decide to make that decision. And then at the close of both presentations, there is public comments. It's limited to 3 minutes, like a typical public comment period. At the close of public comment, the appellant will have up to 3 minutes for a rebuttal. And then the applicant will have 3 minutes for a rebuttal. And then if there are any additional questions from the board, and then it will be closed for discussion by the board.
And great. And will the time be kept on the screen there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. At this time, if the appellant can come up and speak for 10 minutes. Thank you.
If you just give us 1 second before you start speaking, so we can make sure if you have a presentation, it gets set up. You don't. Okay, good. So I just want to get the timer up.
A small matter.
I know, I just want to get the timer up if that's possible.
Great, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Carolyn Shadon. I live at 279 Cecilia Way. I'm really sorry I have to take your time with this, and it's such a small matter, but it is important. And I wanted to start out, I've sent a letter to you all with photos and outlining why I'm concerned and what I'm looking for. And basically, I've come to the design review board and you design professionals for some type of a compromise. I'm not saying what I have as an idea is the only way to go. I did contact the applicant when I saw what was proposed, and I asked if we could talk about it because I said, you know, in our neighborhood, everybody compromises. And I also had sent in my explanation I mainly concentrated on Leland because there's a lot of homes there that extend further than the house next to them, and they have a lot of different configurations for the fences. But one thing that is quite clear when you walk, it's very attractive, that neighborhood with the trees and all of that. But when you walk there, what you would notice is that the side gates all line up along in some configuration. What is being proposed by the applicant is something that sticks out past my house. It's higher than my hedge. And I did at one time have a hedge in front, which if any of you visited my property, you may have noticed. It used to be quite high, but the Tiburon Police Department suggested to me one time that I should lower it so that at least somebody I'm 5'6", so like at my shoulder height, they would be able to see the back gate and they would be able to see the front door. So I lowered my hedge. The applicant has asked me in discussing his plans previously, would I grow that to 8 feet? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I can't. First of all, I can't maintain it at 8 feet. But secondly, it's a safety issue. I want the front of my house to show. And so in any case, I'm here now because I'm looking for some type of a compromise. I have suggested either lowering the fence to 5 feet to match the hedge, which I don't think will be satisfactory because most people seem to want a 6-foot gate and a 6-foot fence. I've also suggested bringing his gate back in line with mine as the previous house that was there had, and most of the houses in the neighborhood do have. And his answer was he's already compromised too much. He doesn't want to compromise. So that's why I'm here before you. I wanted to point out, which I pointed out in my letter, the municipal code 1652.020H, which states that site layout in relation to adjoining sites with particular attention to topographic or other constraints on development imposed by the particular site conditions. So I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want something that's attractive because every day when I walk up my walkway, I'm going to look over there and I'm going to see this big thing sticking out, this big 6-foot. I also don't see the need for that to stick out that far, you know, from the front. So I'm asking for something that will look less imposing, that will not compromise the safety of my property, so that the gate can be seen from the street. And the last item has to do with the garbage cans. That's a bedroom there. So if the fence is brought forward, the garbage cans will be there and I'll hear that noise in that bedroom. I wanted to point out, I hope you've reviewed the photos that I've sent of the homes on Leland and how attractive some of them are. In particular, at 136 Leland, it extends a good 10 feet in front of the other house, and they have their back gates lining up. There is also 127 Leland, if you will look at that photo, and you can see that what they've done is they do have a little fence that comes out from the back side gates line up, but the fence coming out towards the street is the height of the hedge, and it's very attractive. So this is what I'm looking for some type of a compromise that will be attractive, that the applicant will like and that I will like. And I think that's possible. There is one house, the new house on Harriet, that has a similar fence to what the applicant is proposing. And in my eye, although I'm not a design professional, I'm an engineer, it looks very awkward, this big fence sticking out. In that case, they have a hydro loop system. That's probably why they had to do that, to get more room on their side of their house. And I don't know if you have any questions from me. Oh, I did have one other item I wanted to point out. So when I contacted Samantha, she mentioned to me that the applicant said, well, on my west side, I have a very high fence. And he also pointed out other addresses along the breezeway that extends on the west side of my property, crosses Cecilia and goes to the shopping center. And it is true that all of the fences along the walkway are quite high. And the reason is that we used to have a problem with people throwing things over the fence, and that's why those fences are so high. But I never intended for my fence to match on the west and east side. That, you know, would make my front yard like a prison with this high fence. But it does do the job in terms of privacy along that public walkway.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Will you, so should we move on to the next, to the,
Generally, that's unless you have questions for,
does anybody have any questions from the board? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Please, he hasn't started yet.
oops, let me go back. Sorry.
There's a
Yep, that's fine.
presentation too, so it'll take just a
Yeah,
second
just
to
a
pull
moment.
that up.
We don't want to use your minutes right away.
Yeah, that's
So let me see if I can stop.
Can you hear me? Perfect.
How come it's not stopping? They shouldn't let me do these things.
It's fine. It's not working on it.
My son wants to join us. I've told him he can only say thank you at the end, so.
Sorry, we're having some projector issues.
No worries. Let's figure that out before the applicant starts. Yep.
It doesn't hear it though.
It is, it's just a little slow to load.
I hear it.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Okay, it looks like it's about to start.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right, so my name is Kerry White. I'm the owner with my wife of 283 Cecilia Way, and this is Jack, our son. This really should be an uncontroversial matter. I agree with Carolyn completely. On every previous occasion before this body, the appellant has raised concerns about privacy, shadows, and design aesthetics. We've made many changes to our plan driven by the appellant's demands over 7 months. In all our correspondence with the appellant and during our DRB hearings, we had shared our intention to apply for and pay for the variance necessary for the existing 7+ foot fence between our properties. Again, extend this fence forward 5 feet to meet our planned gate, and to extend it backward to address her privacy concerns about one window on our west facade. Instead of she denied permission for our variance application. Consequently, we had to withdraw our variance request and submit the current fence application that we're talking about tonight. We had believed that the current plan in dispute tonight was the final compromise sought by the appellant after she rejected our various requests. So we're requesting a new 5 foot section of a good neighbor fence that's 6 feet tall and matches the fence all around our property. This fence extension is necessary to connect the existing fence to the new side gate approved during the July 20th hearing. Unfortunately, nothing with our project has been easy. Despite your conditional approval of our project on July 20th, the appellant appealed your approval, requesting that we lower our roof eave an additional 3 inches and move the external hydro loop tanks. We agreed to both conditions before the September 6th town council meeting, and this slide shows that reduction of 3 inches on the garage side roof. This illustration of the fence plan being appealed tonight is contrast with the am I doing that? All right. It contrasts with the variance application that was denied. So for context, here's a close-up of the area. Am I not doing it? Yeah, it's not doing anything right now. Actually, I can just say next slide. So here's a close-up of the area taken before our house was demolished. Next slide, please. Here's another slide showing the story poles in relation to both the appellant's property and ours. Next slide. Here's another slide showing the story poles in our 2 properties from above. And the area in question is encircled in green there. And then you can see the taller fence that goes back 48 feet, and then the remainder of the fence behind that. The next slide, please. A closer view of the area in dispute. Next slide. Once again, the appellant has tonight again complained about another facet of our project, citing design, safety, and noise concerns. Next slide, please. Specifically, the applicant in her long email has highlighted several specific concerns that run around our neighborhood, vilifying our project once again. I'll now address each of these concerns. Next slide. Our fence extension does not extend beyond our house corner, as she alleged. Next slide. Our fence does extend 18 inches beyond the appellant's house, but this is behind her a 5-foot hedge, and it's less than 1.25% of the entire property length, so it's pretty insignificant. Next slide, please. Our proposed fence extension will not be awkwardly tall, as it is here. We drew it here next to what the future house will look like. It will be 1 foot above the appellant's hedge, and next slide. It'll back one. Yeah. And it will be 2 feet shorter than the appellant's own fence between our properties, as indicated in the slide below. Next slide. Our proposed fence extension will not significantly obscure the view of the appellant's side gate from the street more than her own hedge. Next slide. Furthermore, despite photos of properties on Leland, neighbors on all sides of our properties have tall hedges that block property views from more than one cross-property views from more than one. Our fence will. Look at the next slide, please. This is 300 Cecilia Way. Next slide. 294 Cecilia Way. Next slide. 290 Cecilia Way. Next slide. 291 Cecilia Way. Next slide. 275 Cecilia Way. Next slide. 274 Cecilia Way. Next slide. These are all properties in close proximity to our own. Next slide, please. As you may recall, the appellant has had countless problems with our project, and now she's concerned about the location of our garbage cans. We've never moved where the garbage cans were going to be on our property since the beginning of our plans. If you may recall, she was concerned about the potential sounds from the external Hydroloop tanks that we had proposed. During a July 20 hearing, we offered both to mechanically insulate the lids with 2 inches of foam and move the tanks under our garbage cans. Following that hearing, she appealed your approval, citing noise from these tanks again. Consequently, after much discussion among our team, we elected to remove the water conserving Hydroloop system from our program entirely. Next slide. I really have no idea what to say about this complaint about our children playing in the driveway from a woman who's saying that this is a family-friendly neighborhood that we're supposed to be protecting. Next slide. You conditionally approved our project. Our project was appealed, and we agreed to our neighbors' change requests again. We applied for a fence variance to address our neighbors' privacy concerns. She blocked that request. We amended our fence application, and it was approved. Now our neighbors challenging your staff's approval of our fence application. The appellant's proposed compromises are not compromises, but additional new demands. Her preferred option is to deny the fence extension and ask that we remove our fence back to her fence line. or reduce the proposed gate side fence 1 foot and presumably our gate height too. We've already purchased the gate. It's being custom manufactured in New Jersey, so it's a metal gate. It's being manufactured right now. That 6-foot gate that you approved previously. So this fence is really just linking the existing fence with the gate that you'd already approved. As I mentioned in the beginning, this should be an uncontroversial matter. So we ask that you please deny this appeal. Here you go. Yeah, you could say.
Thanks. Next, we'll have a public, what's the next in the procedure? Oh, we have any questions? Okay, sorry. We have a question for you.
I just had one question. The story pole right now is not flush with the existing fence. It's like offset.
Can you speak into your mic?
Sorry. Right now, when I view the story pole, it doesn't look like it's flush to the existing fence. It's offset by like 4 or 5 inches.
That's correct, because her fence is not on the property line. It's on her property.
Okay.
So our fence is on the property line, but her fence goes into her own property.
Okay.
That's why there's a number of issues about that, but yeah, that is an issue.
I see. Okay, so it's gonna extend, it's gonna kind of L and then.
We're not removing, there was some kind of connecting piece that was on the fence before, and we're not removing that connecting piece.
Okay, got it.
So I mean, it was there pre-existing. All we're proposing is the 5-foot-1 extension of 6-foot fence. That's all we're proposing. And it's going to be the same height as the current fence. It's not going to be above it or anything. And there was also a mention, I'm sorry, there was another question that was brought up, but I can answer that. Do you have another one?
Nope. We have no further questions.
Great.
And what occurs next? Is it the
The appellant
appellant
gives
gets
another 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
And then
Okay.
the applicant will have another 3.
And there's no public comment?
There's public comment in between before the 3 minutes.
There's, there we go. Yeah, public comment is now, and then after public comment,
Okay.
the appellant will have a 3-minute rebuttal, and then the applicant will have a 3-minute.
If there's any public comment, you have 3 minutes. We'll first take any comments from the audience here live. Would you like to make a comment? Okay. Okay, we see none in the audience. Is there any on the internet?
If there is anyone that wishes to speak on this item, please raise your hand and I will allow you to speak. I am seeing none.
Okay, and then the appellant has 3 minutes, and is that how it closes, and then it comes to the board for discussion?
Yep, the
Okay,
appellant
thank you.
gets 3, the applicant and then board.
Hi, I cannot answer all of the accusations of trouble during the design process. I was told by Samantha that we were here to discuss this fence, not previous design review meetings. And most of the compromises that he made had to do with his neighbor on the east side, who I did support. I will say that the other hedges along my street were brought up that are quite high. I cannot answer for other people who don't want to lower their hedge. What my hedge is, it's low enough for what the police department suggested that someone can look over, an average size person. So that is the hedge situation. I did not claim that the fence extended beyond, I don't know, there was another error that he said that I claimed I didn't. In terms of a fence being pre-purchased, I don't think that that's a fair consideration. He could still put up that pre-purchase gate in line with the fence that's already there. I'm not sure what else I resent being vilified like this because I did not bring up any more concerns than my neighbor on the other side did. And you all agreed with those and asked the appellant to make changes to their design. So I'm not sure where that comes from. I do want to also point out that a lot of the neighbors that signed, which was included with the letter, their reason for signing it was the house on Harriet, which is a very attractive house. But they thought that that fence sticking out like that, the side gate, so far ahead of the neighbor's gate, they didn't think that was attractive. And that's why many people signed the petition that I included with my letter. I don't know if you all have, oh, the piece that's, I also wanted to ask about that. Right now, the story poles are actually showing the fence in my yard, as I sent a picture, which I think is in your package of the proposed fence. It's actually over the property line. I understand that the Tiburon Municipal Code does not allow fences on the property line. My fence is presently in my yard because the previous owner had a shed there when we rebuilt the fence, and I didn't want to make her tear down her shed because she was using it as storage. So that's why my fence is so far even away from the property line, but I will not be keeping the portion that goes over the property line. That will be removed. So we do need to come up with some kind of a design of how these two fences will transition. And a conciliatory one, not one where we're vilifying each other. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will close the hearing to the public and deliberate. Oh, the applicant has 3 minutes? Okay. I apologize.
No, you step us. So this is not about vilifying anybody. It's just recording what's been happening for some time. I'm sorry if somebody feels vilified, but let's be honest here. On July 20th, you guys approved our project, including a 6-foot side gate on the both east and west sides of the property. Contrary to the applicant's assertions, we've done our best to hear, understand, and address her concerns, the concerns of others, and the concerns of this body throughout the 7 months process. We spent hundreds of hours. We've had that incurred thousands of dollars in costs. We have hundreds of pages of correspondence, and our project has been delayed many months, I believe, unnecessarily. Throughout this process, we've made countless changes to our plans, including changing our building design, reducing the great room height, reducing all of the roof heights by 9 inches, reducing our interior ceiling heights to 8 feet, reducing our window heights by 7 feet, agreeing to finished floor height 6 inches below the 500-year flood level, countless changes to our proposed side yard landscaping, further reducing the garage roof height by another 3 inches, and deleting a water-conserving hydro loop system from our plans. The appellant has been particularly difficult for months and continues to complain to the building department and the chief of police. She asked us to compromise, but she doesn't mean that. At every opportunity, the appellant finds new reasons to criticize us and stoke neighbor fears and with exaggerations and innuendos and half-truths. She's weaponized the good intentions of the planning and approval process for attention and to harass me and my family. The matter before you tonight is just the latest example of this inequity. We understand our obligation to make good faith efforts to address neighbor concerns. Regrettably, there is no corresponding obligation required of this or any other neighbor. We respectfully request you to deny this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will deliberate amongst ourselves and close the hearing to the public. Thank you. Would anybody from the board like to start? You want to start?
Sorry, I had a question for staff first.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm still, because it's an abbreviated packet, I'm still trying to figure out the property lines and the fence line. Is the boundary fence on 279 as is a part that connects the existing?
So the existing fence starts on 279 and as it goes to the back of the property, it does extend over and there's a section in the center that's on the shared property line. But the fence that is the section of fence that's in question tonight would be entirely on the subject property at 283 Cecilia. There would not be a connection between that fence and the existing fence. Is that?
There would not be a connection.
No, because we can't approve a connecting fence unless both property owners agree. So this would be a standalone section of fence that would connect to the gate that was approved previously, but it would not connect to the remainder of the existing fencing.
So it's probably the best diagram of the property line is related to the fence.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody like to start?
I'm happy to start.
Okay.
I mean, This one was a pretty easy one for me. I mean, I think that if the application was for a fence that was requiring a variance, like a 8-foot fence or something like that on a flat property, it would give me pause for thinking about it. Same if it was a fence that ran across the front of the property line. We've definitely said no to those in some of these neighborhoods. If it was a fence that was hard material made out of stucco, made the house itself look bigger on that side, would maybe give me pause. But I mean, this is, in my opinion, a very simple fence that is 6 feet. That is, if I drew a line between the corner of the property at 279 and 283, the fence doesn't even like protrude toward the front yard between that line, right? So, you could imagine that in a future scenario that 279 gets redeveloped, goes and a house gets developed all the way up to the front setback. This fence now sits behind both houses. So in my opinion, it's not even a front yard fence in any way. It's a side yard fence. So from my standpoint, it's a pretty easy one to support denial of the appeal.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any comments? Go ahead.
Jim, could you please? Thank you. And talk into the mic.
I just did a quick sketch to verify what I thought when I drove by it several times. I think actually the transition between the two houses will be helped by this irregular or L-shaped piece of fence in here, rather than going straight across. It cleans up the front yard conditions of both of the houses so that each house will end up with a front yard that is appropriate and looks like it's part of the front yard of the house, rather than tucked around a corner where it becomes an appendage. It's a little difficult to explain this, but it's I would say I would definitely vote for the new fence to be as drawn. I don't think it's going to be an impediment. I think it's going to be an enhancement to both parties. One of the curious things about that neighborhood is all of the houses were built originally way back from the front yard setback line. So they're 10 to 15 feet deep in that lot, in their lot. Recapturing that land in the front yard for part of the house is a good thing. And I think this helps do it. So.
Thanks. So the question motion is whether or not to accept or deny the appeal. So,
I would vote to deny the appeal.
thank you. Either end.
The existing fence is 5'9". It's such a very small adjustment, and it actually would go on to hide the meters that are there as well. So I think it would add and complement both homes by the way it's designed.
Okay, thank you. So you would deny the appeal
I
then?
would.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree. I would deny the appeal, thinking through various, like, down, always makes noise. Through the potential negative impacts of the neighbor. I just couldn't really find anything meaningfully to really accept the appeal. So I agree with my board members.
This isn't a variance. This is within the code. So I feel very strongly that I would vote against the appeal as well. At this point, can we make it
At this point, you need to make a motion.
I'll make a motion, but do we want to voice vote, or should we do it individually on a roll call?
This is
basis?
an appeal, so I would prefer an individual voice.
Okay, thank you.
Can I also clarify, there will be, you need to make the motion to bring
Yep.
back a resolution. Perfect.
Yep. So anybody like to make the motion?
I'd like to make the motion as to 283 Cecilia Way. We direct the town staff to prepare a resolution denying the appeal for 283 Cecilia Way.
Is there a second?
We need to put your mic on so I can record it. Thank you.
At this point, we'll have a roll call vote.
Yes, Chair. Board Member Rosner,
It's to appeal, so aye.
Board member.
No,
Paula,
deny,
To deny.
deny the
Yes,
appeal,
aye.
okay.
Well, to support the motion is what he's doing,
Yes, to support the
to
motion.
support the motion. Jim Malott,
Aye.
Brian Chong.
Aye.
Trying to remember, what's your name? Jim Dorcio
Aye.
and Chair Kim.
Aye. So the motion passes, and so the appeal is denied. Thank you. Next up, we have 120 Mount Tiburon Way. And so this is sort of the typical sort of procedures. So the applicant has, and I'm using my bearings, I think it's 20 minutes to present. And where is this on here? And then up to 20 minutes, and then there'll be questions by the design review board, and then there'll be public testimony, 3 minutes each. And then the applicant may respond to the public comments, and the applicant has 5 minutes. And then the DRB will close for deliberation. Before we start, I think I would like
There
to
are a couple
have,
of things that need to happen
Yeah.
first. I think that Chair D'Orsio has something to state first, and then we'll
Sure.
ask the attorney to provide you a little direction as well.
sure. Yes, I would like the attorney to provide direction.
I live within 500 feet of the proposal and I would like to recuse myself.
And I would like to ask the attorney whether the recused can speak as member of the public.
Yes, the recused can speak as a member of the public and stay throughout public comment and the presentation.
Okay, so you are invited to stay and make comment. Another thing before we move forward, there's a couple of questions. First is the appropriate set of conduct for board members when they do visit sites. There were some questions as to what can be discussed with applicants when they go to the site and others.
Board members can always visit sites. The most important thing is to not reveal where a board member might be leaning in terms of a vote. But you can visit and take notes as much as possible, but it's important to ensure that there is no bias and no presence about, where a vote is leaning on a certain decision. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's really clear. There was some question about the content of subject matter during these visits. So that's really helpful. The second question, like the attorney to weigh in, is the appropriateness of past rulings and suitability and how we should regard that and how we can either accept it, deny it, or take it as a given. That would be really helpful for us to understand.
So while everyone can interpret the analysis of the past judgment in this case differently, the 1995 decision itself has no precedential or binding effect on the application currently before the board. The board is free to decide on the variance and ordinance as they would any other application. I can discuss the case more, but sort of to keep it really short, the past case has no binding effect on the board today. And the board is free to discuss the facts of the case. They can discuss the decision as part of the discussion, but legally, there is no binding. You are free to decide on the variance and the ordinance as you would any other application. Happy to discuss the case in more detail if you'd like.
Okay, that's really helpful. Does anybody have any question about that? Okay, so we'll start with the applicant. If the applicant can come up, you have up to 20 minutes to present.
You should let us know when you need us to show it and when you're not going to need us to show.
I'm just going to give a quick intro.
Okay, perfect.
Hi there. Good evening, board. I wanted to thank you all for your time tonight and for all the feedback from the last meeting. It's been an eye-opening experience, but it's
We need to start the clock. Sorry.
It's okay. As I was saying, I just appreciate everyone's time. I want to let you know, we really took the time to listen to the feedback from the last session. I probably re-listened to the meeting more times than my wife thinks I should have. But I want to make sure we understood everything we were directed with. I made a really strong attempt to reach out to everyone that was directly impacted or reached out to us or that we had heard from in the last meeting. I see some new faces in the crowd tonight, so but I did my best there. For a residential project, I also believe we took an unprecedented approach with a visual study to really objectively try to understand the impact of our neighbor's roof line on this project. I think story poles show the addition, but it's hard to see what's revealed when the home is changed. And I'm really happy with the true objective level of detail that it will provide for the board and others to understand the implications of the remodel. So with that, Luke.
Thank you. I'm Luke Wade from Wade Design Architects. First, thank you for your feedback at the last meeting. And I'm looking forward to continuing the dialogue tonight. I also appreciate that the attorney could speak to the legal issues involved, and I get to focus on design. Starting with this slide, our key takeaways were sensitivity to views, mitigating light pollution, and privacy through landscaping, which everything you're seeing here is kind of supplemental to the actual package that we submitted. The rendering you're seeing at the bottom here, this is an elevational view of the side of the house that's facing the most impacted neighbor through the road, just to give a sense of how low slope this side of the home is. And also showing the adequate screening on that side. Doesn't appear. Yeah. Next slide, please. Did we stop the timer?
We can do a next slide.
Okay.
We'll add some time at the end if you
I
need to.
appreciate that. I'm also trying to not repeat too much from my first presentation, but with Suzanne being here for the first time, there may be some repetition. Okay. I'm fine with that. Could I have it for the laser pointer though? Thank you. So this is showing the existing elevation up top, the design below, and just really highlighting the areas of removal and the areas of addition, and very mathematically and objectively tallying our net reduction. We're also including where we were previously. We're increasing the reduction with the feedback that we received last time. The easiest thing to say is that we've dropped this ridge by a foot, actually 12.5 inches if we want full credit today. And then we've dropped this corner by 6 inches from what was story pulled previously. Let's see, next slide, please. So this is a glazing diagram. And the proposed glazing area facing 99 Mount Tiburon Road neighbor is a net reduction, once again highlighting for you the current amount of glazing facing the neighbor, where we are with our proposal. I will point out, because I know there's been some late mail about this, about windows here and their impact on the neighbor in terms of light pollution. This is something that we are sensitive to. I will also point out that these existing windows in the entry tower are all above any glazing that's in our proposal before you. And we, in our eyes, it's a net benefit. Next slide, please. So sectionally, pointing out again, this is about an 8-degree slope. This is not a very high slope property. There's an existing basement that we're retaining. And what the red outline is existing home, where you can see the removal of the tower at the entry. You can see where there's a ridge that pops above this area here. And then what we've played with is originally an averaging of what's happening with these multiple roof lines, but more recently has just become a study of what the view that is created for the neighbor's property that guided everything that we've done. We've maintained an incredibly thin insulation profile and structural profile for this roof at expense to our client, in order to keep this roof line down as low as possible. This space here is necessary to bring mechanical ducting from the basement space through to service these two areas. Oftentimes you see that in an attic up here. The current home has a very vaulted ceiling. The intention of our clients is to achieve a level floor plate for the home, and all of this is in service of achieving that goal for them. I'll also add, Jim, just in the previous meeting, I think you just misspoke, but you had said that the lot had a 20-degree slope, and I think you just meant to say 20% slope because it's about 19. But I just want to point out it's 8 degrees. It's not that steep. And also this here, you had expressed that was 25 or 20 feet high once we got to the downhill side, and that's just not the case. It's about 14.5 feet at that corner, which is similar to the existing condition visually of the existing home. Next slide, please. Skylights, light pollution concerns. Once again, an argument, a very objective argument of net reduction of what the home currently has in terms of skylighting. What we're going to do is going to create less light pollution would be the simplest thing to say. We have also in our submission, our second submission, a revision, specified diffuse glass and automatic blackout sensors on the skylights. This is something that we do as a matter of course on many of our projects. We didn't bring it up in the first submission. A blackout is a net benefit, not just for neighbors and light pollution, but for the homeowner as well. Artificial light just escapes through a skylight into the black, and having that screen there is helpful. And we've done this before where they're on automatic sensors. So two things that we're doing: reducing skylights and using that feature. Next slide. We've also, on the south side, this blue indicates where we've trimmed back the overhang that we had over our deck, over our terrace. So we pulled the corners in by 7'5", and then we pulled the south edge back by 2 feet. And then obviously this reduced by 6 inches as well. Next slide. This is just showing as a corresponding reduction in the lower deck. Next slide. And a lot of this was prompted by dialogue with the Chews, the neighbors at 75 Mount Tiburon Road, directly below, that are also impacted by proximity to the property. This is just story poles and view of the current home from their driveway. And I just want to stress here, we were interested in satisfying their concerns even from their driveway, not from the interior of their home. And I really appreciate the dialogue that we've had with them. I actually think that the solution, and next slide, please, it has been a net benefit to the look of the home to kind of break that line. And here we're showing the generous screening that is going to be provided along that street edge. We also received letters of support, I'll add, in addition to satisfying the Chu's concerns and a letter that you received from them. We have letters of support that came from 80 Mount Tiburon Road, Mark Evans at 101 Mount Tiburon, and a neighbor at 98 as well. So part of the outreach that we've done. Next slide, please. This is just the two side by side. Next slide. Wanted to show a benefit to 99 Mount Tiburon Road as well. This is not something that we really had much dialogue with them about, but the current view looking down their driveway at the property is quite open, quite exposed. Here you can see the very tall tower that we propose to remove, and then the ample screening that honestly is going to be lovely for the applicants. It's something they want. It's not, this is not a situation where they're grudgingly doing it. Next slide. Just an overall site plan. I want to say we did tune the landscaping at the street edge, and we have Tim O'Shea from Green 17 here tonight if there are questions about landscaping. We analyzed the height of trees along this edge as well to make sure that we're creating screening while simultaneously preserving the desired skyline view from 99 Mount Tiburon. Next slide. Okay. Just some context. This is the property. This is the area that we're renovating, remodeling. That's the tower that we intend to remove. This is the orientation of the home at 99 Mount Tiburon, which has views of San Francisco Bay, Richardson Bay, and San Pablo Bay. The home runs right to left long. It does have views out this direction, but the primary face of the building is facing this direction, simply because of the way the slope of the hill goes. You can see all the homes tend to do that. Next slide. This is, what we'll come back to. That's the current view enjoyed by 99 Mount Tiburon Road, overlooking the house in question, the city skyline, which is occluded, which is blocked by the tower. Next slide. The view that they enjoy of Richardson Bay. Next slide. And the view of San Pablo Bay. So 3 bays, 2 bridges. Next slide. And just to give that full context, and once again, coming back to this is what's in question tonight. Next slide. So these are story polls, which I understand you've all visited and seen for yourself, I believe. We have engaged in exacting photography, taken at vantage points agreed to with the neighbor, all photos taken at a high height of 5 feet as agreed to with the neighbor, LiDAR scanning to create imagery with an unparalleled degree of accuracy, and modeled views from various vantage points to create as complete a picture as possible for both the neighbor and the board. So this is the story polls, and if we go to next slide, we can see the proposal, which removal of tower, a currently blocked view of the city skyline is completely open, water visible below, the Bay Bridge exposed into view. Can you go back one slide just for a second, just to drive that home, and then back again? My contention is that that's a better view. Next slide. This is the two of them side by side. Next slide. And then we're just highlighting for you here what's been opened up. Next slide. Now we're proceeding down into it's a lower space, the sunken den, that, you don't see as much water over the existing home now, but the tower is still blocking. Next slide. And now opened up. And this is where we really tuned, because we heard from the board. We heard from the board that the city skyline is a 10 from Jim Malott, that it's one of the most important ones. And we also heard from Brian that a skyline is being able to see the entire building. So our intent here is to maintain that even from this lower space within the home. Next slide. This is just the two side by side. Next slide. Showing what's been removed. This is a little different because there's trees. There's a currently very large maple on the subject property that we intend to remove that will open up more view. Next slide. This is at a slightly different angle within the same space. Next slide. And now you can see, because we've stepped to the right a bit, you see more of the Bay Bridge. Next slide. And side by side. Next slide. And a diagram of what's been opened up. This is the chimney, by the way, of the current home that kind of pops up in, I imagine, a very annoying fashion. We intend to use a fireplace specification that allows us to keep the chimney low. Next slide. Out at the pool level, next slide. How it's opened up. The tuning of landscape for screening, for concerns about privacy and everything else, but not getting too high, even the trees down here, not getting too high to start to create blockage. Trees in the distance that carefully help for that cantilever to not look out of place. Trees that we cannot affect, not on our property. Next slide. Side by side, next slide. What's been opened up? Next slide. Okay, so now we've stepped further to the right, a little more panoramic, really to drive home for you again, the panorama nature of the view. Obviously, we do not have telephoto lenses built into our eyes. We don't zoom in and analyze exactly what's going on. What we say is, wow, what a view. Because quite frankly, it's a lovely view currently. Next slide. And it will be an even better view when you can see further to the Bay Bridge with a neighboring building that maintains a much lower profile by getting rid of a tower that is height, bulk, serves no utility to the current owner, and contributes to light pollution for the entire neighborhood. Next slide. These are just side by side. Next slide. And let's go to the next one. This is just side by side. So I want to close by saying that the main design goal for this project, a real challenge, has been to achieve a cohesive floor plan with good flow. Remodels are a reaction to the frustrations people encounter every day living in a home. For this house, it is the fact that there are stairs breaking up what is a ring of rooms as the main social space. Our clients desire a better space for their young children and see step removal as a major benefit after experiencing several years of knee rehabilitation. What we have developed and presented is our best effort to maintain balance between those goals with the desires of a neighbor to maintain the portion of the city skyline view they currently benefit from over the roof of the existing home. Our intent tonight has been to take the story pull process a step further and create as accurate an image as possible of how our proposal would change the current view from the neighbor's property. It is our contention that these images demonstrate not only sensitivity, but also a high degree of diligence and concern to be respectful of the view and transparent in the design review process to really give you guys an incredible tool to understand and not have to have a hunch about what's going to happen. I believe that what we are proposing creates a better view for the neighbor. We are replacing a panorama that ends abruptly into the side of a light polluting tower with a design that never interrupts the city skyline, that opens up view of downtown to its completion at the ferry building. You'll be able to watch ferries come and go. The new view will be Golden Gate Bridge to Bay Bridge. The neighbor's property already has views of 3 bays. Now it will have views of 3 bridges as well. We also have samples physical samples. Next, can you go to the next slide? And one more, let's see, one more, please. Here we are. This is in the packet, but these are the material samples. The renderings are pretty accurate. There's nothing like a material to look at. And Nick, architect who works with me, is going to bring those up if you're interested in seeing them in person. These are all earth tone materials. These are all materials with the intent of blending with the hillside, not standing out. we are open to hearing your comments. Thank you so much. And answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does anybody from the board have any questions for the applicant? Hearing none. Hearing none, we will open up the presentation this time for the public. There's no questions, right? Just want to confirm from the board. Okay, we will open up the for public comment, 3 minutes each, and Dina will provide or Samantha will provide the time. Thank you.
Okay. Cedar. Yeah, great.
It's on already? And thank you for having me tonight. I'm Jim O'Dorsio. I live at 99 Mount Tiburon Road. I'm here because the original concern that we've always talked about was about preserving the main view, what we call economical view of our home. And this is the San Francisco skyline, but also includes the water below it and Alcatraz. This is being ignored, but that's our view. Could we go ahead and just mag up to this? This was taken Sunday, clear day, 5 feet, my camera. I didn't do anything fancy except just use my camera and walk from my living room down the living room and take these 3 pictures. And could we mag up one more, please? The proposed design elevated the roof height above the existing roof, and it caused a dramatic intrusion of our view. 2 months ago, we discussed this and some recommendations were given, some options that included going from a 3-tiered home to a single tier, create a problem. You suggested perhaps they have a single tier down, or eliminate the steps entering the home, or lower the ceiling or the roof height. And in reality, none of those were done. Alcatraz is still not visible here. The water is not visible. And this is from our living room, our main quarter, in our dining room, same level. There's been a lot of discussion about compromise, and I appreciate many of the things that were done, but still this is 100% of what the developer wanted. This photo shows, I think, pretty clearly that the story poles are quite a bit higher than the existing roof. And that's all there is to it. It eliminates all the water and you can't even see it, but Alcatraz is hidden behind those flags. This is just a taking away of some of our central view, and a view that's very important. I think this view would be very important to any homeowner, and everyone in Tiburon. Views are part of the way we live and why we're even living there. We purchased the home 18 years ago, and we accepted what the board had decided at that time was the ruling and the view. We knew what we were purchasing. And 3 years ago, when the owners at 102 purchased a home, they knew what they were purchasing, which a 3-story home or 3-tiered home on a hillside. And if they want to change it to a single level home, that's fine. But just please do so respecting and protecting our major views, our existing views. Such great efforts were done before to do that, and just let us see Alcatraz and the water below us. And we're talking about a couple feet off the top of that roof. And I have not really asked for anything else. The Design Review Board is concerned about protecting views and privacy. And this is really the heart and soul of the Design Review Board, is the focus on the importance of preserving views. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak?
May I start? Good evening.
Could you hold on 1 second while we get the timing? It's having a major glitch.
I'll be quick anyway.
Okay, please go
Good
ahead.
evening. I am William Morehouse at 85 Mount Tiburon Road across the street, and I am here to support a letter I sent to you in the first
Please,
meeting.
can you please speak into the
describing
mic?
my concerns for this project. Is it not following the hillside guidelines? So I think that this house is designed originally to do that, and it was a great deal of effort to make that happen. So to preserve the views from 99 Mount Tiburon. And I think that it should do, the new application should do so as well. There's a 14 and a half foot floor to floor ceiling, floor to floor dimension within which they could easily lower this roof line and this element of the building at least a foot or two, and would help this whole project completely. But the main thing is that it does not step down the hill. It does not go with that. And the other issue in my letter was light pollution. There are skylights proposed, which they've show on the eastern side, well, actually it's the western side, but their roof, whereas the existing skylights were all faced to the east on the building. So they're really where the view is most prominent. Those skylights were not impacting by a light pollution what is going on. And not only the skylights, but the great deal of glass that will be proposed on the western elevation is, if you look at those plans that are proposed and the elevation pictures, they're all covered with landscaping and not showing the glass elevations. There's going to be a great deal of glass that sticks into what is now the roof line of the existing house. So if you look at the roof line of the existing house and the roof down below, it's a solid dark mass. And that basically is not what you're going to see. You're going to see glass, and it's going to be at night bright. And one of the most important things, not only of the view that you have from your property, is the nighttime view. So I think this is as paramount as the daytime view. And if this could be stepped more, which I believe can be done relatively easily down the hill, this portion, if you will, the downhill portion slightly, it would actually help everybody. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any questions? No.
Yeah. You can state your name, please.
Hi, I'm Charles Ewald, and my wife and I live at 77 Mount Tiburon Road, so just down the hill from this property. I apologize in part, neither the Pokornys nor I have had an opportunity to speak to one another. So notwithstanding their efforts to reach out to people, we've not been able to do that other than a brief encounter about 3 years ago when they first bought the property. So my concerns are solely around, and I hope I'm in order because I know I'm coming in late. I had a conflict at the prior meeting, but my concerns would be about light and the potential overhang of the property in the direction of Mount Tiburon Road. So I anticipate, because we're substantially downhill, downslope from the property, that through landscaping, there aren't going to be any issues that affect us, but I would like to have an opportunity to speak with the Pokornys offline and just understand the design a little bit more clearly than I can get from looking at schematics. Other than that, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Bates. I'm a 20+ year resident of Tiburon. I really want to speak to the board's primary function, or at least experience in the past, with the importance of primary views, secondary views. we had a project raised across from us at 2090 Paradise Drive, which the neighbor's complaint was that her views were going to be substantially impacted. Not only did the applicant almost drastically reduce the size of their property, but they took into account, and the board asked for remediation for even a partial view, which meant put a mural up, take the size of the roof line down. And so to me, that's an example of really what we do well, which is respect our community, respect the views, know that people, especially long-term residents, count on views for property values, resale. So in a circumstance like this, with a longtime resident who has a pretty spectacular view, any encroachment in that view has ramifications, not just for his property and his house, but future opportunities that come before the board. So I know the board has voted very conscientiously in the past to maintain primary views, secondary views. And I think I would like to request that that same principle is applied and continues to be applied as these types of cases are brought before you, because those views are significant for all of us here in Tiburon. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Christy O'Dorsio. I live at 99 Mount Tiburon Road. The very first time we were notified of their idea to changing their floor plan, our reaction was great. Just don't change your roof line. I did ask, why would you want to touch that roof anyway? It's absolutely beautiful and it looks so nice in all our pictures we take of the city and of Alcatraz. At that time, we had no idea their plans were already semi-drawn up. I'm also not sure how our not accepting the plan to nibble away at our existing view has turned to character bashing, personal character attacks, and insults. I'm actually disturbed and concerned by this attack. All we have ever asked is that they don't change the existing roof line. We are not against them building. We are against the disappearance of our stunning view with their proposed plans. Really, would any of you want to compromise a breathtaking view and have it replaced with something that they think you would like? Would you like what you have to be nibbled away because the neighbors in front of you don't want steps? As you all realize, we are the only ones whose views will be impacted by this plan. No other neighbors will have to make this compromise. Our discussion has not wavered and has been the same every time we have met. Don't change your roof line. But now the proposed roof is at least 2 feet higher than the existing roof line. The proposed roof is flat and will obviously cover more mass than the gabled roof and will now obscure more view by mass alone. Let's talk roof additions. Where will the solar panels be? Will that be nibbling at our view also? How about the skylights? Will they open? Vents, chimneys? Do they really require 12-foot ceilings? With a higher roof and skylights, windows to the ceiling, outdoor lighting, that light pollution will have a huge impact on what we see and what we don't. Shrubbery can't be tall enough to block the light from the skylights and the many windows that will now be at a higher level. I wish I could give remedies or suggestions, but architecture is not my specialty. I just know what I can see now and know what I won't be able to see with the proposed plan. And I'm not sure why we are pushed to give up our existing view, which is the view they also have, so they can eliminate steps inside their house, except to the basement and in and out of their house and garage. There are probably more steps on their proposed plan on their property than they currently have and want to eliminate. If they are desiring to eliminate steps, clearly a hillside is not the right site. But why do we have to just accept and adjust to a change in what we bought because a neighbor has decided to just change their floor plan? If we allow this now, where will it stop? When will another neighbor want to change their house? And now the nibble will begin again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's
Could you wait 1 second, please, until the timer resets? Thank you.
Sure. My name is Tim Nardell. I represent the Ordicios. And I've written a couple of letters that you have in your file about this project. You've all seen this story, Pauls. There's a lot of sophisticated renderings, but ultimately there's a change that affects them. Their concerns are legitimate, they're heartfelt. There's been a lot of talk about the prior case. It may not have precedential value, but it's certainly historical background that's very key to understand how hard fought, how much people care about these views, and how much compromise was part of the effort to establish what's there. Nibbling away with that, biting away with that is not in the spirit of compromise. There's been a lot of changes to the project, but no changes that impact these views, which is the primary concern expressed here. Could you put up the slide from Jim's presentation, the last slide, the second to last slide?
Is it okay if I pause the time just to get this up? Yeah.
No, the one with the rendering, the drawing. This one, yeah. So this is an important concept here. This is the light directed back at the Ordoricio's house because of the change in the design of the roof. And you can see that under the current design, which is a lower roof, part of the part that's visible from their house is roof. Under the new design, the part that's visible from their house will not just be a higher roof, but also these lights, these windows looking in their direction. That's light pollution directly in their direction. It's not about net changes in the windows, net changes. It's about the changes that directly impact the neighbors. Christy mentioned the solar, and I think that's important. On the existing roof, it would be hard to have solar pointed in their directions. They're north side. But with this flat roof, solar is going to be directly on top of the roof. And it's almost, there's no solar as part of this project. But of course, that's a ministerial part of, they can get solar if they want it without going through this process because solar is encouraged. But here, solar would add more height to a height that already intrudes upon the existing views. These are all important considerations that you should bear in mind, along with what has been hard fought and established in the existing views. There's been a lot of talk about the cupola that they're taking out. As they said, it provides no value to them and it doesn't matter to the neighbors. Their view is looking towards the heart of San Francisco and Alcatraz. That's the view they've always enjoyed, and that's the view that needs to be protected under the design review guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience who'd like to speak? Yeah. And then we're gonna go online to see if there's anybody online who'd like to speak.
We're checking to see, just one moment. I do see one hand raised. Dean DeVolis, I'm going to allow you to speak. Can we hear you?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So my name's Dean DeVolis. I am the original architect of 102 Mont Tiburon. And I'd like to call the board's attention to the letter I wrote, and particularly two architectural sections that are on the third page of the letter. One that represents the existing home as it is, and the other section labeled B, which represents a revision to the home. The issue of height's been well discussed, so I'm not going to go over that again. But I want to address the board is that the nature of a style of home does have impact in terms of the view, especially when you do more of a flat roof glass box versus a gable structure. And as mentioned before, with a gable structure, your downhill view tends to be of the roof, in this case of a slate roof, seeing the elements and all that. When you go to a more cubistic form or a glass blocks, those windows gets elevated and elevated into the view line of 99 Mount Tiburon. And it's now what you have is glass to glass and light pollution now coming uphill. Because that grade's been raised, the windows are much more impactful on the view and create a considerable difference, particularly in terms of privacy and night view looking between the homes. And what I want to emphasize as a board is that height is one issue, a respectable issue, but the nature of design, the nature of the shape of the volume and the house is different. Gable roofs tend to protect privacy because you see more roof looking at it. More cubistic forms with the house elevated, now you have glass against glass. Basically, the windows of 99 are now looking at the windows of 102 because they've been brought up higher into the plane, even though the roof is flat. So even though the data must stay the same, the windows are much more impactful. So now you've introduced a greater degree of night pollution, light pollution, a greater degree of loss of privacy, and a greater impact on the properties with each other. So in conclusion, because of the nature of the design of the house, the flat roof, the slant architecture, by raising the windows and raising the floor plane, the impacts of privacy and light become much greater. So looking at this, my recommendation is the house must be lowered by approximately 2 feet to take away that effect because of flat roof design on it. So I implore the board to not only look at, like I say, the view loss and those elements, but the nature of the house and its elevation and the impact it has by the architectural design. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the queue?
I do not see anyone at this time. If anybody wishes to speak, please raise your hand and I will let you into the room. I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. At this time, the applicant has 5 minutes to respond. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Saying that there can be no change to the roof, in my opinion, is not a defensible position. The whole purpose of the design guidelines, this board, the planning department, the entire process is to analyze change, not to reinforce no change. We have presented something that we believe is sensitive and well studied. And every view we showed you, which we can, if we can turn that back on, I'm actually want to reference an exhibit. Like I said, is from a 5-foot eye height. It doesn't, I hope you understand, seeing imagery that contradicts what's visible is just something I want to make sure is not confusing for anyone. Our proposal relies on understanding of trade-offs. This is getting rid of what I imagine is not something nice to look at, especially with all this talk of light pollution that is much higher when they talk about, oh, they're raising the roof 2 feet. No. We're well down. I believe it's 6 to 8 feet below that current cupola height. We're averaging the lower roof lines of this current building. And like I said, it's a argument of trade-offs. The current view that's afforded is largely of the roof of this existing home. And a flat roof will reduce that bulk. It's accomplishing what our client wants, right? We actually studied a vaulted roof. We love vaulted ceilings. We love pitched roofs. The view sensitivity here has pushed us to this sort of solution to help maintain the view from 99. Solar. It is shown in the package that was sent in on the roof plan, called out. And if you can go to slide 6, please. Was also, I failed to mention it when I was speaking earlier, but here, proposed solar location. This is not a new addition tonight. This is in the package that we've already presented. It's on the back side of the slope here. So as to be respectful of the views, we understood that that would be a concern. We can sign up for, special clips that make it really low profile on top of the standing seam roof. It is true that it's not really a reviewable thing per California code, but the view is a sensitive thing. And so we did include it. We elected to include it. It's just unfactual to say that we didn't. Windows and light pollution. This wasn't brought up in the previous meeting. It's been brought up. We understand it's a concern. We've already studied a reduction this week with our clients of about 75 square feet. If we can go to the side elevation, it's a slide forward. Other direction, please. Yeah, this is perfect. So here, as we understand from text messages with Gemma Dorcio and our client, these are the concerning windows. And we do have ample screening like our renderings show that will block those windows, but we are also more than willing to make accommodations to bring down the glass line, to shrink the glass size. Like I said, even adding an awning here over this window to conceal it from view, 75 square feet reduction. If you want to, approve of the condition, that's your number that aligns with solutions we've already created. And I think I've covered everything that I heard. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I actually have a question. The skylights, will they be on automated timing system so that
Yeah,
the
so-
blackout shades come on?
Yes, Suzanne, we've done this 2 different ways. One is where it's with like with a clock, that is a timer that adjusts with the seasons because it knows when sunset is. So it's tied to that. The other way we've done it is with a light sensor, actually 2 light sensors, one that's outside of the building and one that's inside. So when it switches, there's an awareness between the 2 sensors that there's more light inside than outside, it closes the shades. And we're also honestly willing to be conditioned in terms of a reduction in skylights too. But it seems to me that there is a technological solution to this. And it's like, we shouldn't be afraid of cars because the brakes might fail. There's a way to solve this concern.
And what about on the bottom elevation as well? How is the screening done? And is that also on some kind of could that be on I don't know what you're proposing there.
Oh, so we're actually just proposing reduction in the glazing. We're proposing reducing the height of the glass for these 3 windows, reducing the area of the glass. And like I said, 75 square feet is what we were looking at. It's our understanding that it's the higher glass that's a concern. There is a canopy here that's substantial, but from the point of view of the neighbor, there's still, that's the concern, is something above. If we go back to the renderings, you can see that side of the building and how it's very well screened. The renderings the other direction near the end of the packet.
What does
And-
75 square feet look like on those three banks of?
I have an exhibit if the board is interested in looking at it. I've been told that that can cause confusion, but I do have it with me if that's something you would like to look at.
What is the procedure on that?
Normally, we need to make sure that we have one for the record and that you guys have a chance to look at it. If you want to pause to do that, that's fine as well, but I need to have one for the public record. And I would like
Okay.
to share that with,
I think
I would
that'd be great.
imagine, 99 Mount
Absolutely.
Tiburon would need to see a copy of that as well.
Understood.
If we could see that, that'd be great. Sorry, I took all the questions. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
It's still going on, love bunny.
Samantha, if we could scroll back to that slide that had the glazing on it. There we go. So that, because what you're looking at doesn't have the current proposal. It's showing the existing and this, yeah.
Okay,
Separate idea.
that's really clear. I don't want to dominate all the questions, but is there anybody else from the board who had questions? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Am I correct in assuming there's some kind of an awning over the piano nook there?
That's correct, but just so you're aware, if you see the blue line,
Right.
we are not taking credit for that, Jim, in our 75 square foot reduction, even though that is an additional benefit.
What's the awning made of?
This was done earlier today, so yeah, I imagine would be standing seam like the roof. That it's a fixed awning, correct? Sure. Would you like to see a photo of something similar we've done on other projects? Yeah.
Can we put that into the record somehow? So we need that.
You'll have to
image.
share that photo with me so I can have it in the
Okay.
record, please.
Thank you.
You responded to my drawing and adding awnings and stuff to knock out the windows. You responded to my drawing.
Chemistry. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, thank you to the applicant. And at this time, the design review board is gonna deliberate amongst themselves. Who'd like to start off?
You should make a motion to close the public.
Oh,
hearing.
we should, or we are closing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would like
to the
you just-
public.
just to
Okay.
say it on the record.
Sure.
Thank you.
Since there are no more, since we have hit the 5 minutes for the applicants and gone through the questions from the board, we are at this time closing the hearing to the public and deliberating amongst ourselves. Who would like to be starting off?
I went first. I went first
Okay,
last time.
okay. Jim, would you like to start?
I would love if everybody makes sure they talk into the mic, because when we try to do these minutes, it's sometimes difficult. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
I've been up to the site now several times, and I really appreciate the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Pokorny were most gracious to let me inside the house and to have a longer look this past weekend. I still have some major problems with the house. The trade-off, as I see it, is the Podkorny's desire to have a single floor level through the entire house is pushing the roof up a minimum. It's down from the gable high points. The gables having high points measured here, but a flat roof measured here has more mass to it. So in some ways, the flat roof looks bigger than the gabled roof does, even though it's technically below the high points of the gable. If you can understand what I'm saying here. This is a key problem to the house. But the guts of it comes down to a 2-foot change in floor height and a couple of steps, 3, maybe 4, between the bedroom wing and the rest of the building. To make this even more sort of apparent, if you look at the section through the building, there's a 14-foot high floor-to-floor height on the downhill edge of this property. So all of the basement rooms are pretty much 14-foot ceiling heights. To put it into perspective, this cove at the top point there is 12 feet, so it's 2 feet higher than that. It's as big as, almost as big as this ceiling height here. It just needs to be lowered 2 feet, in my opinion. And that comes from a lot of study of the plans, looking at the views. I think that the original decision was made after a lot of great work and negotiation on the part of all parties. They came up with this building that stepped down the hillside. If we approve this building the way it is, effectively, we're saying that design guidelines aren't necessary on this site. This is a hillside site. I don't know who our mystery guest is. The decision was made back in 1994, 95, and I was here and remember the brouhaha of it. I wasn't on the board or even had anything to do with it, but I do remember thinking that was a good solution, that the entire DRB had 2 meetings, the town council had a meeting, then it went to Superior Court, and the parties negotiated out a good solution, and the architect provided a good building solution. The fact that you want no interior stairs, and I'm talking to the audience here in general, but the fact that you want a level floor over your entire house, which is 80 to 100 feet in one direction and 80 to 100 feet in another direction, isn't a sensitive solution on a sloping site like this. The sloping site dominates your design, and it should be observed and followed. The solar panels on the roof are an important issue. I didn't realize they were on the backside. I missed that, but if they're on the backside, they probably won't be visible from the Odoricio house. The huge glass of the elements, you've solved the problem more or less by the proposal you submitted tonight, the architect. I would say that it's an insensitive solution, and I question whether or not you need an awning over the top windows of those windows in the piano nook. It will bring the tops of the windows down so that they look, to my eye, to be about 5 or 6 feet from the top of the roof. Whereas everywhere else in the house, the top of the windows is only 2 feet down from the top of the roof. And that was the problem of light pollution, and why it's important to consider that on particularly the north elevation, but the other elevations will be a problem too. I think the abrogation of the basic design guideline and is to step down the hillside is the hardest one to get over here. I just can't see, I can't see approving a house that is 14 feet in the air when it could be 12 feet in the air, and you'd have 2 steps at the other end of the house, 3 steps at the other end of the house. It only occurs at one spot in the house if you look at the plan carefully. So another aspect of that is the fact that you've got a several foot void ostensibly for air conditioning between the living room floor or main living room floor and the ceiling of the downstairs rooms. That 4 feet is totally oversized. You don't need that nearly that much size in that area to get a few ducks around. And I'm sure your talent as an architect would be able to work out a great solution there. It just doesn't make sense not to drop the thing 2 feet. So that's what I'm suggesting. One other issue I'd like to bring up is you're proposing to take down all the trees on the site virtually and plant all new trees. It'll take 10 years to grow into the size of the existing trees. But the key is going to be to keep them pruned, both for your view and for your neighbors' views. And I've noticed that some of the trees don't affect the applicant's view, but they do affect the neighbor's view. So tree pruning to no more than the height of the building is going to be an essential part of this proposal. Other than that, I think you're close to what I suggest would be an approvable plan, but I do think it's necessary to lower it still.
Thank you. I'll go next then.
You weren't here last time, so I'd be curious to hear your fresh perspective.
Yeah, I was thinking about the views. The guidelines weren't written so that there can be no impact by a project. They talk about minimizing the impact. I think that's a key point because otherwise nothing would get built in Tiburon, to be honest. In this day and age, I fear that this absolutist sort of interpretation of the guidelines saying that there is no impact, it never talks about no impact, but how to minimize impact. I struggled. I saw that one image and from 99 and I didn't see that. So I think it was taken from a lower view. I think I'm pretty short. So I think the roof line isn't covering the bottom of the skyline. It's actually lower than that. So I'm pretty short. So I think I had a pretty accurate sort of view of that. The question is Alcatraz. Is that a significant piece? You know, I can't think of it in Alcatraz in of itself. So I think of Alcatraz as part of this entire panoramic. And to say that everything has to be preserved, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. I see the impacts, the potential impact. However, I also see the impact in two different ways. There's a beneficial and a harmful impact. And I think there's something that to be said about losing that that piece in the middle. What was that called? Sorry, I'm mind blank. But that piece in the entryway, that tower, that little tower. And so I think that that's actually a really important piece. I was having trouble with the windows actually. I thought it is much higher. I thought that one diagram where it showed the current elevation and the percentage of windows that are above that was really impactful, but I could get behind something where we accept a condition where this revision is actually accepted. So that really helped me get over that hump. So that's where I stand.
Very good. I'll go. All right. Yeah. So I really struggle with this one, right? I mean, this is not an easy one to kind of analyze from both sides. I definitely understand the applicant's desire to eliminate stairs. I like it. It's a much smarter floor plan to not have to walk downstairs when you just cross from, kitchens to front doors and stuff like that. At the same time, it seems like, 99, like there was a decision at some point prior to the home even being built, that someone was going to put a sunken in, you know, because without the sunken in, I guess, dining room and living room, it's a pretty easy one for me because you walk down the hall, you can still see water. There's still a full view, right? So then you kind of have to ask yourself, like, did, again, not the current owner, but the original architect or whatever, make a design decision to put in a sunken in, you know, part of the house, which then created kind of almost a condition for a neighbor not to be able to build a you know, full flat 2-story house, right? Almost forcing a design based on where that other house was located. Because, you know, there's also a lot of, you know, lot to the front of that home that, you know, could theoretically have built other rooms, you know, on down the hill or something like that. So, and it's not a sunken in living room on a very low ceiling. It's a pretty high ceiling room that exists in. So, like, I guess I have to kind of consider like where you're looking from, not only the view that you're looking at, but also where are you looking at it from, right? So then I go to, you know, I guess I was hoping if when I had gone out there before, it was a overcast day and I didn't get a good representation. This time I got quite a few photos from a lot of different rooms to really get an idea of what was going on. You know, I mean, where the flags, you know, the photos I think were different than the ones that I took. You know, the ones that I took, at least from the sunken in living room, shows like the flag line pretty much running like right along the shoreline. You know, the top of the flag line. So I hear, but not covering up, but enough that if you looked at it, you wouldn't necessarily feel that there was water between the top of the roof and the city. It's like literally, I mean, I'll share my photo, which I know staff will want later.
Yeah.
But for me, that's like the photo where it's like literally bang on the shoreline, you know, at my eye level.
Yep.
So for me, it's like, it's not even close to 2 feet. The gym's like, I mean, imagine if you lowered that line just to the bottom of the flag, like 6 inches. I mean, these flags are not that tall, right? Like it frees up the ability to see an entire water line across there. So I guess that's one point. The other point is the totality of what's happening, right? Like the elimination of the other stuff, I think can't be minimized. If you look at, you know, 3 possible scenarios. Scenario 1, hey, we want to redesign our home. We're going to keep the roof where it is, and we're going to eliminate all this other stuff. Like if I was the neighbor, I'd be ecstatic. I'd be like, wow, this is going to be a way better view. If you came and said, hey, look, we're not going to eliminate anything, but we're going to bump up into your water view, I'd be, you know, unhappy about that. So then there's the kind of halfway in between, which is like, hey, we're going to eliminate all this stuff. There's a chimney that's currently sticking up like right into the middle of the financial district, which I got to imagine probably you don't see after seeing the view so many times, right? But clearly the elimination of that, it dramatically improves the view. So then I kind of think of the totality of like, is the view better or worse than it was? And if that roof line came down just a notch, like I probably want the applicant to do the project versus not do the project. If they said, hey, you know what, turns out we're not gonna do the project, I'd be like, maybe I actually wanted it, right? So I guess just from putting myself in the shoes of the of the neighbor, if it was my home, right? Like I think with, and the windows were definitely a consideration. I want to call that out. Like when I went in to the inside of 102 and took a photo from the top of the door, it took me a second to realize that there was an entire set of windows that were going to be way above that door. So I definitely, I'm supportive of something that eliminates a lot of the glazing and also lowers the top of the windows. But for me, I'm not far away from kind of being able to support it. I also think that, the elimination of the maple tree, the red tree is also a view blocker. And I think that opening up more of the bridge, I mean, from the dining room, you'd see most of the Bay Bridge. So yeah, that's what my comments are.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I think there's, a lot of projects that especially are messing with the height, roof line. It's often the view is negative. The view impact to the for the neighbors is negative. This is different. It's changed. It's hard. Views are so sensitive to individuals, especially if you've been looking at it for a while because you've lived in the house. But we're talking about a changed view that in some rooms are, in my opinion, much better. In some rooms, but at a different angle, maybe they're impacted. So it's such a fine line of you're going to find a place in the house if this the application as is a place in the neighbor's house where the view will be worse. But back to your point, it's the totality, and it's the you know, for me, you know, the Bay Bridge and seeing that in the dining room has a very positive impact compared to some of the potential losses of Alcatraz. So you go back to I think what Brian is saying is, you know, what at the end of the day we want to maximize, you know, the benefits to both parties, right? That's like a dream project, right? Both parties are perfect, and we know that's very hard to do. So we're gonna have to give on some things versus others. And again, to Brian's point, that having it all one level. I was staring at the floor plan, you know, for a lot of the presentation, and you know, having a young child and thinking like there's going to be a step potentially you could fit it like right next to the entryway where there are other stairs. It just is that forcing that to be the solution, you know, and that impact on the applicant, weighing that against the neighbors, you know, trying to enhance the amplify the changed view, right? Because then at some point you swing it in the direction of, well, the view is now better completely 100% for the neighbor. And is that, you know, so it's that balancing act, and it's what is possible to do while maintaining the single level, because I personally think that is a really big thing for the applicant and what they're trying to achieve. And, you know, finding a way to, you know, try and optimize, you know, maintain the view for the neighbor. But I'd find it hard given the change and the benefits for certain viewpoints and potential impacts for others to make that such a big change for the applicant.
Just to let, I don't know if you're familiar with the principles of visitability and universal design. So it's not just about young children. There is a movement in the US for universal design. As you're aging, steps are actually becoming a big issue, and for accessibility and visitability of elderly, it's actually becoming a big issue. So I support this idea of having a single level. I'm wondering if there could be a compromise. Can we push it down? I haven't looked at the detail of the roof section, but I'm wondering, can we move it down like 6-8 inches?
The roof or the floor?
The roof.
Yeah. Okay.
The roof.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's currently 10-foot ceilings. So
11
And there's
11.6.
also possibility. What if I haven't looked at, the plan. I mean, there's obviously a long bit of plan. I don't know how much, how much feet you'll need to get down, in a ramp by 6 inches. That's another solution. How many feet is that?
Yeah, it's about 1 to 10.
1 to 10. So it's about 10 feet. So I don't think there's any room in the plan. Maybe I was looking at the plan. It's pretty tight, I don't know, trying to figure out if there's a way to ease that in there, but
Fact of the matter is that we live in a hillside housing area.
It-
This is a hillside house. It's to put it in perspective, my own house has 45 steps from the driveway to the living level. Uphill every day, several times and down. So
it's a hillside house, but I think there's different degrees of hills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that 3 steps are going to, or 4 are going to even possibly be a problem for little kids, big kids, or adults, or even seniors like me.
it's actually a big deal for my mother. Sorry, it is a big deal. But regardless, I'm wondering, I haven't looked, I don't know if any of you have looked at the section and seeing if we can bring down the roof 6-8 inches. Can we do that?
All you have to do is squish the house. It's
What-
got a 14-foot floor to floor on the basement.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because that's only a function of leveling out that first level to match it with the first, with the.
Yeah, I suppose they could
North side
fill
of
it
the
in and make it a 12-foot ceiling, but it's still.
But then you have to go down.
You've
right?
got a
You'd have
bunch
to
of
make a
little
step.
rooms down there in the basement and they've got 14-foot ceilings.
I
You've
feel
got
like
enough
there's a
room to hold
design
another
solution
floor
for
in.
this because
I
Bring that down, you have to have steps on the main level, and that's a problem.
no, you don't have to. You can
You could put a ramp in it.
you could put a ramp in it.
Yeah.
One of the rooms could be, I don't know where, but it's possible.
It's doable.
I think there's enough length somewhere to allow for that. I'm trying to look at the plan. It's not gonna be graceful though. The 6 to 8 inches sound like something that people could sort of,
I mean, six is my number. I mean, 6 inches like basically allows you to see the water across the top of the roof.
and they're already gaining the view on another skyline too. And then if you could get that little bit of water between the bottom of the skyline.
Would that be through lowering the ceiling height or?
I don't know how it's achieved, but lowering the height of the topmost pitch of the roof, lowering that 6 inches can get there.
If they go for a foot, I'd consider it.
Yeah, if they had 11-foot ceilings, I'd agree with you, or 12-foot ceilings. But
Well, they've
like
got-
kind of, yeah.
Where's your 6 inches coming from?
We need to look at the section. I don't have a good section. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like
I mean,
the section in here that shows,
They didn't present one.
yeah, I don't see one.
the
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we can't have the,
Can't open,
yeah,
can't
yeah.
open the public
it's
hearing.
the
You know, so I mean,
procedure,
the other thing that we've done in the past for a condition of approval is not necessarily figure out where it comes out of, but leave it to the applicant to figure out where it comes out of and just require that the roof line itself be
that
6
the
inches
highest point
lower
comes down
as
6 inches. They can figure out what that is, but yeah.
They want to pull an inch out of a different subfloor or an inch out of this, whatever. It's not like we're going to specify that it has to be like ceiling heights of 9.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
I know we've done this in the past. Can we open it back to?
I don't think
Fine,
so.
that's it.
I think,
We definitely, yeah, we definitely can't.
but if we
have
do
to open
that,
it up
we
to
have
everybody.
to have public comment, do it all. We have to allow for public comment. I
We
think-
basically be opening it back up to ask the applicant something, but we'd also then open it up all to the public again.
Are you open to 6 inches, lowering it 6 inches, or you want more?
I don't.
You want,
no,
you
no,
want,
no,
you
no.
want more?
Absolutely.
You want 1 foot?
I'd want 2 feet, but I'll settle for 1.
And what are you at?
I'm at 6 inches if
I'm at 6'2".
doesn't materially change. Again, I want to weigh it comes down to, yes, is it, or is the interior floor height, like, I know it says 10, but that's lower of the eave and then it goes up to.
They can figure out how they can do it. They can do it a number of
If
different
let's say there
ways.
was a more expensive insulation that gave them an extra inch or two there, and then maybe they decided on a different,
Okay.
I think we just,
flooring or something.
I think they could figure it out. I think architects could figure out the latest technology and et cetera. I feel full confidence.
Or they
I
could
feel
pull
like,
it out of become 9.5-foot ceilings.
I don't know. I don't think it's up to us to design it for them. I think it's whether or not there's a number that people could be happy around.
Yeah, and if that's,
Jim is at 1 foot.
No, I'm actually not at 1 foot.
There's-
I'm at 2 feet and
You're at 2 feet.
I'm at stairs. So, but I honestly believe that part of the problem, the biggest problem I have with this is that it isn't responding at all to the site in the sense of the stepping down the hillside would normally be. that and the windows are concerning me still quite a bit, just the amount of glass on them.
Are we at a point where we can make a vote? Is anyone willing to try to make a motion or?
I'm at, yeah, it sound, well, what are you, well, I guess we'll find out if we make it.
What
So,
are the conditions that people want to make?
yeah, so I mean, for me, it's 6 inches lower roof line. And then I'm kind of okay with the glazing plan as presented, as long as can be sure that this set of windows.
I also want the
Sits.
skylight, the sensitivity to the light. And so once the light of the exterior dims to a certain percentage or the certain amount, that the blackout shades actually kick into the skylights.
I don't know how we'd want to specify that type of skylights. What is the architectural name for that?
I will have to find, we're obviously going to have to write a resolution that would add these conditions.
Yeah.
And so we could do that within there. I'm sure that there is a term for that and an art for that. And I don't know it now offhand.
Okay, and is there a resolution for currently, are we looking at basically?
There is a resolution. What I would do is somehow figure out how we can amend it to include the language with respect to some type of sensitivity for
the light level because I think it's a light level. It's not the time of day. It's the light
Right.
level. Yeah.
right. In the skylights in particular, right?
Yeah. The light level, the exterior, the outside light level that triggers the blackout shades to kick in.
Okay.
And then this elevation with the architect providing the type of awning, that image. So this isn't a sheer awning. This is actually a solid fixed awning
Over the windows, you mean?
over the windows. That we've lowered the roof line, the topmost portions by 6 inches.
You should just do the motion.
Huh?
You should, I'm taking notes, but I think you're hitting the motion. You want to?
Okay, I make the motion to accept the resolution with the 3 conditions as stated.
I'll need a second.
And the project is categorically, I think it's 1 and 3 exempted.
Mhm.
As stated in the staff report.
I second.
If we could take a roll call vote.
Absolutely, Chair. Board Member Rosner.
Aye.
Board Member Malat.
Nay.
Board Member Jong
Aye.
and Chair Kim.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1.
Thank you. So the design review board meeting is closed. Thank you.